like take for instance corn subsidies. The government subsidizes corn uh, harvesting, and it creates a situation where every the commodity itself isn't permitted to float based on its demand and its actual value in the market. They basically make sure that all of us get lots of meat, is essentially the way that it works. The government, in America at least, makes sure that all Americans have access to lots of meat, lots of food, and what the actual value of it is taken out of the equation.
Right. It also ends up depressing the consumer price too.
Yes, artificially.
Yeah.
And what we wind up with is a degree or a level of a standard of living that's unrealistic, but is expected by everybody. And, if you look at, say, whether it's France or Russia and the 19 teens, one thing that will completely disrupt and shut everything down is not paying your soldiers and not make your people starving. That shuts everything down. That completely undermines the stability of the society. And, when it comes to corporations, and at this point, it boils down to like cell phones and internet access and all of this stuff that's expected by default, but which is propped up unrealistically and completely independent of market value. And the right tends to ignore its pet iterations of that. The left tends to ignore its pet iterations of that. And between the two, we wind up with a fantasy world that's implemented independent of objective reality.
I feel like if this chat room ran the government, we'd probably be in a lot better position. Our entire system right now is not a good one in a lot of ways. I think we have a really good start. The system started out well. I think we, as the people, screwed it all up.
Yeah.
And I wish people would just learn from those mistakes rather than just trying to continue to work with it the way it is in a lot of ways. I mean, like, there's a lot of aspects of our government that I love. I do think that the fact that we are supposed to be a representative democratic republic is an awesome form of government, because then the people do get a say. I'm not in favor at all of kingships or dictators or anything like that, or elite or oligarchies. Those are bad. But I'm also not in favor of the entirety of the people as a mob having say either, because that destroys the negative freedoms of the individual, or the negative liberties, excuse me. So I feel that a democratic republic, like what our base government was supposed to be, and still is to an extent, is the best balance between those two.
See, what I want to see is a situation where each individual's unique potentials are unobstructed as much as possible. And when it comes to economics, like, for instance, I'm going to probably come off as like very old school when I speak in these terms, but I'm going to use this as an example. If you got a family, 2 parents and some kids, the fact that both parents have to work seems absurd to me.
That is a little ridiculous. That's our current situation. It's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Why is it that way?
And I think it's that way because our economy sucks and because we have freaking debt that we can't pay back at the moment. Like I said, if we had no debt and our currency was actually backed by something that is valuable, then I think we'd be in a lot better position right now, and people wouldn't be in that position where both parents have to work. Ideally, we'd have people retiring at the age of 30 or 40 because they've accumulated enough wealth for themselves that, you know, they can actually just live off of it for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
Now, granted, I don't think everybody's smart enough to do that, and I think actually a large portion of the population is, in a way, economically stupid. So I don't have confidence in the average human being to actually do that for themselves. So I think my theoretical idea is a lot different from my perception of reality at the same time.
See, I probably have more confidence in the average person's capacity for that than you do.
Well, when you see these people, I think a good example of why why my point is a little more realistic is because you see, for example, we have a lot of obese people in this country, right? We have a problem with obesity and just people overweight in general. If people had the self-control to actually take care of themselves properly economically, I think they'd also have the same self-control to actually keep themselves physically fit.
But a lot of that has to do with what's available to you and what information you have to work with, and of course you have to develop out of a state of ignorance into being informed, and that's an environmental factor. But in terms of just people's raw potential, I'm willing to bet I have more confidence and hope in people's raw potential independent of the environmental factors than you do.
I think what it is everybody's good at something, but the thing is that in reality, not everybody gets to flourish. I don't think in any economic system everybody would be happy. It's not possible for a decision to be made and for everybody to be happy. I think
that's awfully cynical.
Well, I really think that way. I think that be based off of history. It's historically accurate to say that, because whenever a decision is made, there's always somebody upset about it.
Well, that's easy to say. You got an example to back that up?
Well, our election is a great example of that. Presidential election. Then you have I'm sure there was a lot of people that were upset with with certain decisions made by our president, during World War II, before World War II. Civil War is a great example of how not everybody agrees on everything all the time. That led to war.
Well, let's get back to the individual, though. I would agree that not every person has the intrinsic capacity to go from rags to Bill Gates status.
Right. That's what I'm saying, is not everybody has that capacity.
But Bill Gates status is not a prerequisite for happiness. Certainly not for every individual.
Yeah, and I think that the example of the classic family, from the 60s or whatever it was, that you see in TV shows and stuff like that, where you have the mom, the dad that has a nice job, he's not too stressed about his work. You have the mom who's able to stay at home and take care of the kid, and you got a couple of kids that are just going to school and have and are just happy. I think that's possible for a majority of our society, but it would take a level of follow through on people understanding economics and voting in the right, not only the right representatives for that, but also the right laws. And that's why we're where we're at today. I don't think people understand that stuff, and even if they did, I feel like the level of manipulation and the level of deception right now in this country is way too high for that to be fixed unless something major happens.
What do you think is more important? Somebody who's a skilled writer or orator, or somebody who can innovate medical technology that saves lives?
I think they're both equally important, because you need to have the writer being able to log stuff, and the person who's so for instance, you have the writer just log what the medical person is doing, so that we would have it for the future.
Well, if let's say the writer is writing fiction,
I think that's important as well. Because what it is while society's survival is based off of not only practical survival matters, but it's also based off of a certain level of happiness from people in the society. because otherwise, you get riots in the street of people who are unhappy, that kind of thing.
That's kind of a non sequitur. I mean, let's go back 500 years. Is what is available to the individual when they come into the world today better in terms of making their experience from cradle to grave? Is it better now than you think it was 500 years ago?
I would be ignorant to say I have a solid opinion on that because I don't know what it was like 500 years ago. Exactly.
Well, no,
we only have records of what it was like. And so based off of what I know, I think that
go back 5,000 years when when people were living half as long.
I think it was absolutely terrible back then. Life was.
So you would say we've come a long way since then?
I think we have come a long way, and I think a lot of people don't understand is how lucky they are to live in the United States as it is. All you have to do to look at like what it was like 500 or even I think 5,000 years ago, like in a lot of ways, and I don't mean to be mean or anything like that, but all we got to do is look at like certain areas in Africa right now.
Well, in certain periods in the past, Africa had some profound civilizations. Ethiopia was a massive.
Well, it did. But I'm talking about what it's like now. People can barely eat in Africa. They don't have clean water.
See, what in at least my understanding of history, what seems to have progressed the most is the capacity for the potential of each individual to be unleashed. That their time is not preoccupied with survival so much as pursuing their potentials. And, I used the example of Egypt a while back that, people didn't have to spend all their time farming. A certain subset of the society was able to effort that, and that enabled other aspects of the society to pursue art, literature, and other things, philosophy. And there's kind of a critical mass that has occurred at some point that has gotten us from horses and buggies to space travel.
That's true. That happened in a very, very, very small, very, very small time frame compared to the rest of the world and its progress. All we have to do to see horses and buggies is go to not even 200 years.
Yep.
Like we went from horses and buggies to spaceships in a matter of less than 100 years.
Well, we went from horses and buggies to spaceship in like 50 years.
No, I don't think that's right. Because I think the first spaceship, that was in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, and if you're talking about mass production of automotive transportation, not counting trains, which the individual, I'm always going to go back to the individual here. The car, that kind of transport was the individual's. That was available to the individual. A train is very rigid, and it was a step in the right direction. But the point is that the conditions were in place for individuals to pursue, like Tesla. Tesla didn't have to spend all of his time defending his property and growing food to feed himself. He didn't have a family. And the conditions that brought that about, I think, are vitally important. And I might be a libertarian, I might be a free marketeer, but there is something to be said for the society fostering conditions that allow individuals to pursue their potential, their own incentives, their own desires, and their own ideas. And, if you think about it, going from one person being able to provide for a household to needing two people to provide for the household is going backwards.
I can see where you're coming from with that, and that actually makes a lot of sense. The question is, how do we keep that from happening as a society, and without bothering the negative rights of the individual?
Well, you have to eat. You have to have a house. You have to have shelter. You have to have clothes. And somebody has to have time to pursue their passions and their potentials. It's all going to continually go back to this notion that the time that's spent is not generating wealth. And that might step on some toes because it sounds like, it's a capitalistic kind of thing. But from a systemic standpoint, we're in retrograde right now. And nobody wants to solve that problem. I mean, shit, what? In 10 years, are we going to go back to child labor because two parents can't maintain a household?
You have a point. And we need to solve our economic problem, and I don't see that happening anytime soon, because of the fact that the direction the country is going in is just the government borrowing more and more money without being able to pay it back.
And
My question is, why are we even borrowing money right now in the first place? What are we borrowing it for? That's my question. I actually don't know that answer.
I'll give you the answer.
Borrowing money.
We only have one form of legal tender: Federal Reserve notes. If anybody comes up with an alternate currency like Norfed did with their currency, they get shut down. Their competitor.
I didn't even hear about that.
Doesn't surprise me. You should look into it. That was a commodity-backed currency that was an alternate to the Federal Reserve System. And
when did that take place?
It had its heyday in the late 90s. Just Google Norfed, Norfed. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. See, what I'll continually take an ice pick to is the fact that nobody really wants to face the root of the problem. They want to pass it off on, this policy or that, or this solution or that. But those solutions are confronting symptoms. They're not actually confronting the problem.
Right.
And if anybody is aligning their fealty with the Republicans or the Democrats, they're contributing to a continuation of that, the growth of that problem.
What's the actual problem?
That we're slaves in an economic sense, that we don't own anything. We have no power. We have no autonomy in an economic sense. We're dependent on the system that everybody bitches about and is trying to manage in their own favor.
I think and this is why I agree with conservatives, I think a lot of conservatives, maybe not Republicans, but a lot of conservatives, we see that problem and we want to fix it. The problem is we can't get somebody into office that'll do that.
I don't really believe that. And now I'm coming from somebody that was raised Republican, raised conservative, and has left the plantation in that regard. And I don't see people really wanting to solve the problem, because no matter what you come up with, you're going to have to drop your standard of living to make it happen. And nobody's willing to do that. I'm not. We're addicted. We're drug addicts.
What do you think about the advancement of robotics taking over labor?
Once robotics take over labor, that's going to be a huge shitstorm with the government as when it comes to unemployment. Because everybody's going to expect the government to fix the unemployment problem, yet it's not going to happen.
My take on it is that it's unavoidable. It's a fixed expense, and an industry would prefer fixed expense over wages.
So what if you could have robots that farm for you and generate power so that it can provide food for people?
You'd put a lot of people out of a job, for one.
But they wouldn't need to have a job to pay for their food anymore.
That's true.
Who would pay for the equipment to make all that food, though? And who would own the land?
And why would they give the food away?
You'd have to be government funded, I guess. And it would have to be for public benefit.
And at that point, when the government controls all of your food, your main means of being able to survive, then you become completely dependent on the government, and that's exactly what the government wants.
But we're all dependent on them already.
We are, but the thing is, we need to get out of being dependent from them. That's the key here. We need to make so the government's afraid of us as the people, not the people are afraid of the government.
The government really isn't a separate entity. It's just made to control the people around one center. instead of being in the wild.
Theoretically, you make a point, but in practice, that's not really the case.
I would put it in slightly different terms. I would say the government is an instrument that's being used to mine the people, to loot the people by the ruling class.
Well, I think the ruling class in this case usually is the government. So
No, the government is the tool of the ruling class. They're the ones that are managing the system. They're not the ruling class. They're the servants of the ruling class.
well, and the other thing we got to realize, there's always going to be a ruling class. It's just the way it is. There's always going to be that huge not a huge amount, but like there's always going to be a powerful upper class because that's the way society naturally flows. There's always going to be people at the top.
Perhaps. But still,
Any attempt to equalize that has always ended in problems. You can see that from all the socialist and communistic countries.
I'm not saying what I'm saying as though I know the answer. What I'm saying is to shine a spotlight on the actual problem rather than the affects of it that we're contending with, like the fact that bread is, 80 times more expensive now than it was 100 years ago, but 100 years ago it wasn't much more expensive than it was 100 years prior. See, the problem is we so does. Oh, did he bail?
I think it's back.
Don't we have access to more food now than we did in the past?
Yes, we do, but at what cost?
So why does it matter if the cost is higher in absolute numbers? If it's just inflated values, the numbers themselves don't actually mean anything.
Tell that to your bank when they come to take your house.
I completely cut out because the internet blipped. So what were you saying?
Well, what I was saying is that, and us at our age, even me as probably the oldest person in the room right now, we're inheriting a problem that I suspect is insurmountable. If you're talking about actually dismantling the problem and fixing it without some catastrophic revolution, I mean, revolutions are fucked up. They
are.
And
they brought about this country, and I'm glad for it. But at the same time, it really, during that time period, the revolution took place. That was a terrible burden on the people who had to do that.
And what I see is a lot of people that will propose a lot of solutions to things that aren't. They propose solutions that sort of circumvent the pain that would be required to actually fix the root problem, which I don't even know if it can be fixed without hitting the reset button, and that I don't think would be pleasant for anybody.
Society would dive into mass chaos,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't seen something like that with the amount of population we have ever in history. That could be disastrous with how many people are on this earth today.
Well, you've seen stabs at it, the French Revolution, and of course, the fall of the Tsar of Russia, 1917.
Well, right, but you got to think about this. The population has exponentially increased since then. Back then, we had maybe 2 billion people. We have 13 billion now. People,
Yeah.
I think, now on this earth. That's a huge difference. I think the United States population has increased by at least 3 times as much, if not more than that, since then.
Yeah, it's terrifying if you actually stop and think about it in those terms.
Think about it this way. You have almost 400 million people fall into a civil war. That's asking for problems that are going to be so disastrous that I think in some ways it could be just as bad as a nuclear war. At least, but the difference is obviously a nuclear war would have a lot longer lasting effects because of radiation and stuff like that. But I think the temporary effect would be you'd be living in a state of chaos and we'd probably be living like a third world country for a few years while that was going on.
The globe would. See, we've achieved something that's profound, but it's built on an inverted pyramid of cards that is, I mean,
and to be honest, I don't think, even with our debt, I don't think any other country is going to ask for that debt to be paid back in full right off. Like, I don't think anybody's going to actually call for that. And the reason why is because they know it'll create mass chaos in the world market. So I think what we have on our side is the fact that the whole rest of the world knows if you upset the American economy that badly, it's going to be terrible for the whole world, including yourself. So I think we have a little bit of a protection bubble because of that.
That might be wishful thinking.
Well, I know that for a fact most of our debt we owe, I believe, is to China, correct?
A great deal.
So here's the deal. If China declares war on us, we no longer owe them anything. They can't do anything about it.
That's a reset switch scenario.
Exactly. And I think that and I think China knows that, so they won't ever hit that reset button.
Yeah, that's we have a mutual relationship with China that is helping both sides, but it's not helping in a way that's actually solving the core problem. We're addicted to a standard of living that's not economically supportable with merit, only with debt. You know, it's just like if your neighbor makes $30,000 or $40,000 a year, but every month they buy another car. That's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
And as far as the individual is concerned, harm reduction, if things were to, I mean, it could go on forever. I mean, they could just continually tally the shit in computers and keep the thing going theoretically forever. That's possible. They've done a really good job so far. But everything around me is ultimately owned by somebody else, and you and everybody in this room. It's all debt, and there's no assets to discharge that debt completely. Not for everybody everywhere.
Well, like I said, I think that we could pay it back I think we could keep the standard of living if we were to have the government actually stop spending money all the time. And I think that granted, I think it would naturally, for the government to stop doing that, the standard of living naturally would go down slightly because, you know, people would have to start doing things for themselves a little bit. You know, for instance, take a cut at how much we're paying for the roads to be repaired. I mean, around here where I live, they have some really ridiculous projects going on. It's like, really, you use our tax dollars to pay for that, and it's going to be pointless. Like, for instance, over near me, they created a pedestrian bridge over a highway. Maybe 5 people a year use it, yet it costed them at least $1 million.
Yes, sir.
You're gonna fucking love Susan's playlist, dude.
I've got it pulled up. Obviously, I haven't checked it out because I'm engaged in discussion, but it's literally right in front of me. See, a lot of people talk about the national debt and things like that, but what very few people talk about is unfunded liabilities. So when you talk about like 18, 19, 20 trillion that the United States is in debt for, that doesn't touch unfunded liabilities, which is in excess of 60 or 70 or maybe even beyond $80 trillion.
Could you explain that as to what those are?
Pensions, for instance. It's not money you owe now, but that you're liable for in the future.
Oh, like for instance, our soldiers' money and stuff like that,
or retirement, you know, things like that. I think in terms of just raw assets, actual material, we probably sit on 60 or $65 trillion in actual assets, buildings, cars, stuff that has intrinsic value. There's not enough of that to discharge those liabilities.
Right, but because the liabilities aren't owned now, it's not an immediate concern. Granted, it's a concern for the future to be able to pay for it. But here's the deal: if you solve our current economic debt, then you start, and the government were to start making money and paying off the debt that way, rather than spending more money each year, I think we'd start making progress towards that.
But you're conservative, right?
I'd say I'm conservative, but I'm more of an independent that tends to just agree with them most of the time.
So right-leaning.
Well, I have almost no left-leaning views, so.
Okay, so by default.
By default, I'm conservative, but like.
So within the scope of that, within the scope of that philosophical paradigm, what do you mean by the government making money?
Well, I think honestly, like, as much as I hate to say it, the government's got to get to a point where they're spending the amount of revenue the government's gaining by tax dollars is more than they're spending.
The tax dollars are debt. It's a debt tally.
Right, but how does the government pay off debt in the first place?
They sell bonds.
Like regular stock market bonds, is what you're talking about?
All I'm doing is doggy paddling around the reality that, again, you make $30,000 a year, you're $5 or $6 million in debt with a 10% APR. Can you pay that off? Even if you doubled your income to $60,000 a year, because the accrued interest is in excess of what you generate.
So we literally don't generate enough GDP to even pay off the interest. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay, I did not realize that. Okay, so that's a problem.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're fucked.
We're fucked.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think the only solution to that is
this
if we
is my
freaking
opinion.
go mine an asteroid and get a bunch of diamonds or something.
This isn't my opinion. This is just numbers on paper.
That is numbers on paper. So, frick me.
So at that point, what's the priority? If you accept that as a reality, priority?
The priority is to find a way to fix that. It's to find a way to make it start raising our GDP to the point where we can.
No. Presuppose it can't be fixed. Then what's the priority? I'll give you a hint. It involves taking care of each other.
I don't think socialism is the way to go.
I'm not talking about
So-
socialism. At least not from a systemic standpoint. How much silver do you have at your house?
As far as I know, none.
So if you wanted to get something from me, and I looked at a Federal Reserve note and said, that's not worth anything. What do you have of value that you can give me to get my corn or my water?
You have a good point there. I think so. You're saying the barter system.
Essentially a new economy based on intrinsic value.
Rather than actual money.
Money's worthless. The money we use is worthless.
It really is. I have to agree with you on that.
Am I going to accept a piece of paper that you write IOU on for my corn when that corn can feed my family?
You have a point.
That's the reality that at some point we're probably, as a global civilization, going to have to face. Might be 50 years, might be 100. I have no clue.
And like you said, theoretically, this could go on forever.
Theoretically, as long as everyone went along with it, it could go on forever. But
Except the problem is eventually you're going to have a riot, and I think eventually what's going to happen is the problems we face now with the cost of living being so high in a lot of places, you're going to have, at least in one of the first world countries, you're going to have, and because of where we're at as the United States, it probably happened here first, you're going to have a group that's going to riot in the streets eventually, a large group. That's going to be a large percent of the
Man, this guy's connection.
So you advocate a barter system, or you want a currency based upon stuff like silver?
I advocate looking at the reality of person-to-person interaction. And like, I'll give you a perfect example. What would probably be wise would be taking 120, whatever the market value is of silver at the time, and buying a roll of junk silver dimes. A silver dime has about, I think, 2 grams of silver in it. That's silver. That's not an IOU. That's an actual thing that's measured and is broadly understood as having value, and sticking that in your closet. Another thing that might be of value is 9mm rounds. Another thing of value might be, potable water tablets. if all of this shit shut down, if let's say the power were to go out across the country and never come back on, food stops moving. And within 2 or 3 days, every city's going to be out of food. What are you going to do? The money at that point becomes what keeps you alive and keeps your kids alive. Insulin. I mean, I don't mean to be a pessimist, but if we're talking about minimum wage, for instance, to keep people, at a sustainable level, the extent of that will
All right, I'm back.
the extent of that will wind up in, well, if nobody's taking your money, then what do you have of value that you can get what you need to keep your family alive with? Even if it means possum.
Okay, so
So in that situation, silver would be basically useless because it's just jewelry.
Well, it would be useless. You can't eat silver, but it's a medium of exchange, and that's what has allowed us to prosper to the extent that we have now, is a commonly understood and accepted medium of exchange. I mean, it started with gold and silver.
Well, nails both have there's a physical rarity and a particular useful physical properties of both of those.
Yeah, and ammunition, there's definitely a practical application and usefulness of ammunition.
Okay, so before my internet cut out on me, the point I was trying to make is eventually with the cost of living being so high, especially with this, it'll probably happen in the United States first because, like I said, I think we have the worst debt issues than any other country right now, as far as I know.
China's is pretty
So
ugly.
it's theoretically going to... China's is pretty ugly too, but theoretically I would say it would happen here first. And what's going to happen is you're going to get that reset button because once the U.S. government falls because of something like that, the new government that's in place would not take on any of that debt, which would throw the whole world in chaos.
You're assuming a new government will be in place, and that could be wishful thinking.
Okay, well, the other way that plays out is we become a dictatorship because of the military force used against the people to suppress half the population rioting, which I don't think would even work in the first place. If you're not that many people upset.
If you're not paying your soldiers and they can't feed their families, you think they're going to do what the fuck you say?
Exactly. So I don't think that the current government would be able to even use their military to do that because of the fact that even the soldiers would be having a problem.
Yeah.
So a new government would definitely be in place
You're going to have
because of a
gunships.
revolution.
You're just going to have gunships sitting on runways doing nothing because people are out trying to feed their families, not enforce policies. That's why Rome fell.
Right, and so if the U.S. government were to fall theoretically, according to because of a revolution of the people, then what would happen is
Not even it doesn't even
whole-
require revolution. The government doesn't exist. It's an illusion. It's just a bunch of people that are operating in tandem. If they stop operating in tandem, it evaporates. It no longer exists. You got buildings and tanks sitting there doing nothing. There is no government. It's an illusion. It's a broadly accepted illusion. And if the people that are participating in it decide that I need to spend my time making sure that my kids eat tomorrow, not enforcing some bureaucratic policy, there is no government. It disappears.
right, and that's when another country would swoop in and probably try to take advantage of that.
Unless they're suffering the same fate. And as globalism increases, that's more and more likely going to be the case.
Right, where there's going to be so all it's going to take is for us to reach the breaking point of people not being able to feed themselves, and then this whole system we have placed in the world is going to fall to chaos.
Look at the housing crisis in '08. That was here, but it affected the globe because of how deeply integrated the financial systems are around the world. There's a very good chance that if shit goes down here, it's going to have a cascading effect and the entire globe will suffer a unified, similar fate, different in different areas to different degrees. But it's one big basket at this point. and I'm venturing way off into like theoretical territory here and getting way outside the scope of just the minimum wage. But the reason I'm doing that is because nobody seems to really want to address the underlying problem that this is a house of sand at this point. And we've inherited it. It's not our fault. This has been going on for, what is it, 2017? So this has been going on for 104 years plus. And it's a fucked situation. We have been looted by our ancestors. And I don't know what the solution is, other than to do what you can to hedge your own capacity to make sure your family can eat and survive.
Again, the solution would be a huge reset button. Spend a few years, if not a few decades, in poverty, the whole world, and then rebuild. That's what's coming for us.
Yeah, maybe.
Unless theoretically this freaking goes on forever, which I don't see happening. There's going to be enough people that are going to be upset about it. They're going to, without knowing it, because of the education level, especially in the United States, I don't think a lot of people realize how intrinsically twined everything is like that. They're going to write in the streets thinking the government is the problem, which it is, but at the same time, they're going to think the solution to the problem is to write in the streets and be upset about it to the government and say, the minimum wage is too high, we don't have, or too low, we don't have a cost of living, blah, 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 blah. There's going to be not enough people able to eat. They're going to expect the government to feed them all. The government won't be able to do that. They're going to riot. Everything's going to go to crap. And what they won't realize while doing it is that they just plunged the whole world into a third world country.
Have you ever heard the term just-in-time economy?
No.
How much food do you think your average Walmart has stockpiled?
Well, I used to work at Walmart, so we have enough food to maybe feed the economy or feed our entire population of our small area for maybe a day.
I would say 3 days. That's the figure that I've seen.
And that's if everybody were to share it.
And it's not because of a lack of there being food, but food being where it's needed. If the trucks and trains stop moving, then New York is fucked, Louisville's fucked, LA's fucked. Even if you have stockpiles of food 200 or 300 miles away, that's not going to do you any good on location. I've read somewhere that if the electricity were to go out for 6 weeks, we will never recover. Because at that point, things will have descended so far that it cannot be surmounted.
Yeah, that's theoretical, though. I think that it would be suck for a while, but I think we would recover. It would just take a while.
With a lot of deaths?
Yeah, well, there would be a lot of deaths. That's for sure.
That
would be from people. Oh, okay.
Hello, Eric.
So that would be from people who, I think the people who would die would be the people who don't know how to survive without Walmart or without,
None of us know how to survive in a scenario like that. That includes you. How much food do you have in your cupboard? 6 weeks?
Well, I don't, but I know how to grow food.
How long does it take to grow food? A season?
That's true.
It's
a point there.
It's an ugly prospect. And I think that most people seeing, as soon as they recognize the ugliness of it, they just go into denial, myself included. So, just something to think about.
So what we need to do while we are not in that state right now is we need to try to come up with a solution to prevent it. Even though we might not be able to think of it now, I'm sure there's some way to circumvent it at some point.
How many people do you see addressing that kind of effort?
Not many, but if the reality is about to hit, I think that's when that's going to be your only chance, because when you have those people getting ready to riot, like I was talking about, that will be the only chance that anybody will have to say something about this.
The country could lose power tomorrow. None of us are prepared for that.
Well, true.
Still have gas, and you can drive around with gas cars.
Yeah, and if the power goes out, the pumps stop working. What happens when your car runs out of gas?
Figure out how to pump it out manually.
You and thousands of other people that are at the gas station trying to get at that gas. It's just ugly. It's an upside down house of cards built on a foundation of sand. It's a very pessimistic scenario that we're involved in. And again, it's not our fault. We've inherited it.
The only other way for this to work
Yeah.
is if all the governments of the world were to forgive each other of their debt,
Hey, Andy.
regardless of how much it is.
Andy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the person you've been asking to meet is in the chat right now.
Oh, cool.
Eric, this is Andy. Andy's been saying that he wants to meet you.
Hi, Andy. Pleased to meet you.
How are you? Yeah, it's good to meet you too.
I'm doing pretty well. It's middle of the night and I can't sleep as usual.
I love the enigmatic cigarette cherry in the middle of darkness. That's awesome.
Because it's out. I'm out on the porch, Trying not to be too loud.
I think at this point I'm going to stop my cynical line of reasoning because it's just leading down a spiraling drain.
Well, like I said, I think there is probably a solution to the problem. It's just something nobody has thought of yet.
Well, debt itself isn't going to stop us from having power.
What's the problem that we're trying to solve?
We're trying to solve the problem of the fact that even if the entire United States was devoted its entire GDP towards paying back the debt, we still wouldn't even be able to pay the interest back. So we're trying to figure out how to pay off the debt or how to relieve our debt problems without the whole world falling into complete chaos eventually in the future.
Are you aware that Americans own more foreign debt than America owes debt to foreign countries?
That I didn't know of.
Yep, it's true.
So what I was just talking about too
Fuck yeah.
was if we could convince, this is freaking obviously an idealistic scenario that will probably never happen, but if we could convince all of the major governments in the world to forgive everybody's debt and do a reset on the debt, that would be probably the most favorable solution to this problem.
It's not really a problem. The problem is government spending. It's not debt.
Yeah.
Well, the
We
thing
know
is
it's not a problem because we can see it not being a problem in the status quo. Now, what is a problem is the fact that a substantial amount of our economy is being wasted on government spending of a variety of sorts, and that we'd be massively more prosperous if we didn't have this servicing of this debt. But it's not a problem in the sense that the country's still solvent, and individuals are still working, the economy is still quite robust in general. And getting more so, interconnectedness prevents debt from being meaningful. That's what it does.
that's a good point. But I'd also argue that as the current with our current situation, with people still getting upset about the fact that the cost of living's too high, and then you have the entire loop going around where the cost of living's too high, people want to then raise the minimum wage. Okay, minimum wage gets raised, small businesses, and even like mid-sized businesses start going out of business. Corporations start to flourish. You got any businesses that are left cutting hours. People start being homeless. More people are upset about the cost of living being skyrocketed even higher. And it's just this loophole that's going to keep going on and on and on.
Okay, well, first of all, even if the government were to get rid of the minimum wage entirely today, almost no impact would be felt because it's not what's actually sustaining wages at the low levels that they're currently at. Second of all, the solution to the small business problem is built into the fact that small businesses can avoid taxes much more effectively, especially with the advent of cryptocurrencies, which will allow most small businesses to avoid taxes entirely. Additionally, you'll notice many small businesses are going cash only for lots of services, and for good reason, because we're avoiding the taxation. This puts large corporations, at a disadvantage. Remember also, a corporation is just a legal fiction to protect individuals from going bankrupt when their small businesses go out of business. It seems to be this institution that we ought to be concerned about, but in reality, it is, again, just a legal fiction, and it's one that serves our interests well in general.
That is why Eric is a fucking debate coach.
Damn.
I'm not even debating at the moment. I'm kind of cold. I'm probably gonna go back inside here in a second. I'm gonna try to go to bed again.
No.
But this is interesting stuff. I love talking politics. I'm very optimistic in general, and the reason I'm optimistic is because ultimately humanity operates on a local level. Whether the problems that we have stem from non-localization, namely centralization of power, and the fact is humans are too ingenious to get stuck there. We have the ability to circumvent these centralizations of power because they're less flexible than individual human beings. And with information fluidity where it is right now, namely that we can move information as quickly as real time, like we're doing right now, it makes it almost impossible for government to keep up. Legislation is a deprecated means of solving problems.
No.
No, I agree with Eric on this one.
No.
Well,
I think.
Abraham, you're a statist, so you don't know anything.
Am I really a
Well, I
statist?
think and this is actually that I do agree with. I think what needs to happen is cause, like you said, now I think if I took you correctly, definitely, especially federal legislation is becoming useless because of how fast information is moving. Right.
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
that what you said?
And once
I think then
cryptocurrency starves the beast, then they won't even be able to do anything. They don't have any money
Oh,
left.
Eric, you're getting it all wrong. The federal, sophisticated, specific, and intricate federal legislation can deal with problems that exist right now with, for example, the minimum wage. How could we deal with that on a local level?
We don't, Abraham, because the amount of minimum wage that an individual needs is contingent upon where they live. Only locals can deal with determining that, and only the market can deal with determining that.
Well, Eric, the scenario we've been talking about right before you arrived is a situation where access to information is completely cut off.
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, that doesn't make any sense because power generation is not centrally located.
Well, the theoretical scenario is that we all lose power coast to coast.
Okay, how?
It's a thought
yeah, that's a
experiment.
good point.
Okay, but the thought experiment is contingent upon how. If it's electromagnetic pulse and we're undergoing nuclear, thermonuclear war, the loss of power is the least of our problems.
But you
True.
would have
He has a
access to
point.
this information, though. That's the thing. If we have access to information, like for instance, I right now don't possess enough information to be able to grow a crop. Certainly not enough to provide nutrition for my neighborhood. Certainly not by myself.
But my point is the only sort of thing that disables a small world's local node system like power generation and information fluidity, which we have here, is something bigger of a problem than the problem that we're talking about. If we're going to lose that kind of information fluidity and lose power generation on a nationwide level, then some sort of serious catastrophe has disabled a system that's designed with countless redundancies to prevent exactly that from happening.
How much faith?
I think the article. Well, Jeremy, I think the article you read too was based upon the idea of humans not doing anything to try to restore the power grid. Even if there was a huge EMP blast, I think that there would be enough people that are specialized in electronics and understanding how that stuff works to at least get our internet back up and running within a few weeks.
I promise you this, guys. If that happens, I'm going to schmooze the shit out of people who know how to do stuff.
There
That's
we
a
go.
promise.
Yeah, the key is to actually start working as a community to solve your problems because everybody's got different strengths, everybody's got different weaknesses. You all got to work together, and I think that's what a lot of people will
Someone's
start
gotta
to
be the
realize.
schmoozer. Someone has to do the schmoozing. That's me. I'm going to go try to go to bed again. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Ooh.
He brought up some good points from a realistic standpoint.
And of course, everything I'm saying is hypothetical, worst case scenario.
And I don't think worst case scenario is going to happen, to be honest.
Perhaps not, and that's why I prefaced that with "if this could go on forever." That's best case scenario.
That's the other extreme.
Exactly. That's where
I think what reality is going to be reality is going to fall somewhere in the middle. I think
it usually does. I mean, shit, look at the crazy kind of stuff we've been told for the past 50 years. There's going to be an ICBM exchange. Obama's going to roll out Sharia law. I mean, it's just nonstop. The Japanese are going to buy up all of our assets and own us. None of that shit has come to fruition. None of it. But it's fun to think about.
Yeah, and I like the point Eric made is that we need to start working locally more. This is why I personally have, along with a lot of other conservatives, have always promoted states being able to make their own regulations rather than the federal government doing everything.
That is the
and
same.
then I would even say I would prefer the counties to have more power than the federal government.
What's that?
That is the same fucking shit. If Congress, federal government got together and said, let's make some fucking legislation that a resolution.
No,
that
it's
can
not.
be editing,
No, it's not. What you're not considering is the fact that it was exactly as Eric, right? Eric said, not Eric. It was what's his name? Was it Eric? Is that his name?
The guy who just popped in and popped out?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eric? Yeah. Okay. What he said was that information flows too fast for the federal government to keep up. Well, here's the deal. If the small communities and counties were the ones making the local legislation, then it would be able to keep up a little better because it's literally right there with their communities.
Wouldn't that still put the federal government behind in terms of the amount of information that they know of what's going on in the country?
Well, exactly. Honestly, the federal government has way too much power as is. I think the whole point of the federal government is to enforce the Constitution and protect us from outside stuff, aka the military, and they're also our diplomatic liaison to other countries.
Okay, so
wow, that's nice.
Let me finish my.
I mean, there's probably a few other responsibilities I didn't think of.
Let me finish what I was saying earlier, which is the federal government has the capacity to invent legislation that is very specific that can help the state, local, and federal government work in conjunction to tackle simple problems, especially problems that are at the local level. If you want the spread of information to maximize the benefits of the spread of information, you need to have a system set in place that can help keep up with all of that information. Otherwise, it's just like fucking problem admiration. You're just saying like, oh, this is happening, and like we can't do it because it's too fast, and like it's just not in our capabilities.
No, me and Eric just told you the solution. I think Eric probably meant this by his statement. Give more power to the local authorities than they have. Because the local authorities will know what to do best in their local area.
Yeah, but what you're explaining is what I'm literally just reiterating, but in a different approach.
But I'll tell you what's funny about this, though. What's your name, Andy?
Yeah.
Is on one hand you'll express a distrust for government and things like that, but now you're talking about how the government could come in and solve a scenario like that.
That's a good fight.
I distrust the federal government more so than the local government. At the same time, I still prefer the negative. I still have a preference for keeping our negative liberties.
Okay. Do you trust state government less than county government?
Yes, I would distrust state government less than the county government.
And
but I would still distrust the county government. But at the same time, we need some sort of government.
I agree with that. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a minarchist. But
exactly.
All of this presupposes that those institutions are continuing to function. And they're not objective. If the people involved stop participating, those systems break down entirely.
That's why you need federal government to enforce it.
Well, even even at the federal level, if the federal government doesn't have the capacity to manage things at the local level, they're ineffective.
Yeah, this is why I say that the real government is the people around you. I mean, if you look at all the corruption in government at all levels, even local, I mean that's shot now.
Well,
But
I mean,
the real people that are in charge. If I want to go outside and smoke a joint, who is it that is governing me? Who's governing whether